Hey, hi everybody. I'm Ian Marshall, indeed the chief bastard of Sanuk Games. So I don't know how the translators are going to translate that. My job title, in fact, comes from our game, Bombing Bastards, which in Chinese is called Bapua Ren. So I don't think the job title will translate. Anyway, I would ask to all the panelists to come. I guess I have two microphones. Anyway. Okay, if every panelist could introduce themselves briefly. You first.
Hi, I'm Johari Mustafa. We're from Malaysia. We work closely with the mobile network operators on monetizing content. So for 2015, it will all be about games and OTT applications. And we're mostly on the ASEAN region of Malaysia, Indonesia, Thailand, Vietnam, and Philippines.
Robin.
Hi, I'm Robin. I'm from AsiaSoft. Basically, we are a game publisher publishing mobile and PC online games in Southeast Asia, covering all the key major countries in the region.
Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Natsume. I'm one of the co-founders of BoomZap. We're one of the oldest and largest independent game developers in Southeast Asia. We've got people in, I think, 12 countries right now, in about 23 cities, primarily in Southeast Asia.
Anton.
Hi everyone, it's a pleasure to be here, an honor to be in this panel. Thank you for coming. And my name is Anton from Touch10 Games, and I'm from Indonesia. We are based in Indonesia, and we are arguably the largest game developer / publisher in Indonesia.
Okay, and Wong Gui Tong.
Okay. My name is Tang. I'm the CEO of Suha Game. We're the first mover and I think the #1 game publisher in Vietnam now.
Okay, so, well, we're going to talk about the publishing games in Southeast Asia. And, well, the thing is, the Southeast Asian game market, not just mobile, game market, in 2014 has a gross revenue a little bit north of $1 billion US. But do we know how much of this revenue comes from mobile games and which specific countries are driving that market right now? Who can give insights on that?
I think Robin is the guy. He is the data guy.
Yeah, Robin is the data guy.
Okay, for Southeast Asian market, mobile games has been a boom for the last 3 years. Traditionally, we are very focused on PC online. So with regards to data where Ian has said that it's slightly more than 1 billion in revenue, I would say the split right now should be maybe about coming to 50-50 basis, where PC online is still having a slightly bigger share.
Okay, and which countries are really generating most revenues?
Well, to answer that, interestingly, Indonesia, with the biggest population in Southeast Asia, they're ranked #1 now in terms of generating revenue. However, in terms of ARPU, we see Singapore being the highest, with 170 over dollars. Malaysia following closely behind. Then we have Thailand, Philippines, and then Vietnam.
Yeah, I mean, to put things in perspective, Indonesia is how many? Like 240 million people?
Yeah.
Whereas Singapore is 5 million people, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Indeed, the ARPU is much higher in Singapore, but that doesn't mean that the overall market size is significant, does it?
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of growth in Indonesia. However, the ARPU is low. We got a lot of subscribers buying smartphones and learning on how to purchase online. So I guess for the next few years, Indonesia would still maintain its lead on being the first in Southeast Asia.
If I can just add, I mean, to your point, Jan, I think if you were to segregate any large urban population in Southeast Asia, you would see much higher numbers that looked a lot more like Singapore. But generally, we don't say, like, let's look at the Jakarta numbers or let's look at the Bangkok numbers. We say, let's look at the Thailand or the Indonesia numbers. And that's a very different economy. But if you were to say, let's compare Singapore to Bangkok to Jakarta, I think you would see those numbers are not as wildly different as they seem to be when you look at the whole nation.
Okay. Yeah, and where is best room for growth, according to any of you?
Indonesia.
Yeah, I agree. Indonesia is going
Thank
to
you,
we
thank
all
you.
agree.
Okay, so why Indonesia?
So there's a couple, if you don't mind, some things that are really exciting in Indonesia right now. The biggest one is the smartphone growth. Obviously, our friends here in China are producing some wonderful new handsets at reasonable prices, and the smartphone growth in Indonesia is just through the roof. And unlike some of the other slightly more mature markets in Southeast Asia, the current penetration of smartphones is quite low. And so when you ask where the growth is, there's certainly a lot of growth there, where in places like Thailand and Vietnam, you already have pretty serious penetration for smartphones.
Okay. How about Vietnam?
I think Vietnam is I go around the region. I see that Vietnam is quite ahead in terms of moving from a client game to mobile game. The ARPU and the hardcore game on mobile is, I think, 2 years before the other countries. Yeah, in terms of moving up to.
Okay, so it means right now in Vietnam there's still a wide majority of feature phones, right?
No, before, but now it's smartphone.
Oh.
So now people don't play client game anymore. They move directly to mobile phone, mobile game, smart mobile game.
Mm-hmm.
Normally people go web game and mobile, but in Vietnam it's different. Everyone go mobile.
If I can add to that, I think a lot of Southeast Asia, when you're looking at the current growth, you're looking at people who are getting their very first computing device, right? You're not looking at a market where people are, they were playing web games on their laptop or their PCs. A lot of the growth is in people who have never had a laptop, never had a PC, probably never will, probably won't have a tablet, but they're going to have some variety of smartphone. And so the growth is, like you say, very, very different, and it sort of skips that step of web games.
Okay.
Can I add something about Indonesia?
Sure.
So I happen just to be in the right country, which is kind of good for me. However, I think I'm going to present some challenges that maybe the outsider would never see in the day-to-day basis. I think Indonesia is a vastly island nation. We have over 14,000 islands, so it's not like and the 45% of the population just happen to be stuck in Java, right? And you have this other 13,999 something islands who are not connected very well. And also the government has, we have a law that if you want to, let's say you want to roll out 4G, then it has to be all over Indonesia. If not, the telco will not even build the tower. So I think one of the problem is the network. I would agree. If you guys would agree with me, is that the speed of the internet is really slow. We in our phone it says 3G, but I think it's a lie. It's not 3G. It's I think 2.5 something G. And then people say it's 4G. I don't think it's there because even the telco admits that the tower doesn't have the capability for that kind of megahertz. So that will be kind of a challenge. But I think as in many infrastructure related problem, it will just be a matter of time.
Yeah. How much time? Yeah.
I'd like to add. This is obviously all true, and it's also not just true for Indonesia. It's also very true for the Philippines as well. The other big, huge roadblock is payments. You can't talk about doing business in Southeast Asia without talking about payments and how you deal with payments.
It's good. You anticipate my next question, in fact.
So to give, I think, the most fascinating example, last time I checked, credit card penetration in Indonesia is less than 0.5%. So let's say you put yourself on a store that only takes credit card payments, only 0.5% of Indonesia even has the ability to pay you. And that's pretty shocking compared to other markets. But even going to Vietnam or going to Thailand, you're still looking at very small.
Vietnam's less than 3%.
Yes, it's still very, very small. So that's one of the big challenges that you have to overcome in the region. And if you can't solve that, I think you're not even able to get started.
I want to add a little bit. So out of that 0.5% are people like my mom and dad who would never pay for games. So it's even the smallest percentage than 0.5%.
If I could add on Indonesia, personally, when we first went to Indonesia in 2005, you see the definition of internet What's interesting was when I actually walked up to a store and said, could I have a 3G data for my iPhone? And they said, oh, you need a BlackBerry for that. You see, so the definition and understanding of internet in Indonesia was really jump-started by BlackBerry being in the market. And once that happened, everyone was on a BlackBerry, and then later the smartphone adoption came in. And now you have a lot of Indonesians buying smartphones, but like Don was saying, the data in terms of the bottleneck of data, getting the games that they want, introduction of these games, and also making payments, since only 0.5% people have credit cards. So you're seeing the emergence of direct courier billing now coming in to that market.
Oh, sorry, and just add on to payment. The thing is, most games developers actually price their items out of the basic income level of the population. For a kid in Indonesia, in Philippines, or maybe in Vietnam, $1 US could actually be the whole day expenses. So not only that you have third-party payment, you also need to consider the price level. You need to price it according to the local standards.
Okay, so yeah, in terms of means of payment, since people won't use the credit card that they don't happen to have, what do they do? I mean, how many third-party payments are there, and how do people activate them?
So there's a couple of different ways that people pay, and some of them were very surprising to me when I first heard about them. Obviously, you can go into the local convenience store and you can buy prepaid cards. So you need to be working with the people who make those cards and deal with that. There's direct telco billing, which is quite a lot. And then the one that surprised me the most is a lot of people just pay through their ATM. There's a lot of actually, you get a code, you take that code to the local ATM, and you actually buy it straight out of your bank. And so there's sort of a lot of different payment types, and it's very difficult to say, oh, well, we've decided to go with one payment type. That's not really an answer in Southeast Asia, because different places. And again, I think one of the biggest challenges with Southeast Asia is you can't talk about Southeast Asia. You have to talk about Indonesia, you have to talk about Thailand, you have to talk about Vietnam. And each one of these different places is its own country with its own language and its own infrastructure and its own rules and its own sort of silliness. And taken as a whole, Southeast Asia is a lot of money, but it's not like China in the sense that there's one language and there's sort of one thing that you have to consider. You have to consider these small countries, and some of these small countries, as of themselves, if you take all of these sort of hurdles to getting paid and hurdles to getting known and hurdles to dealing with a government infrastructure, one by one, those countries don't make a lot of sense. And it's very difficult to get in there for a developer who's not really geared towards Southeast Asia.
Yeah, actually, for payments, since you have to manage with a different kinds, basically, of providers, would you have, as a developer / publisher, to integrate every possible API by yourself, or can you rely on Google Play or the App Store to interface themselves with that?
Okay, you can't rely on Google Play. I mean, I love my friends at Google, but that's not, they take credit cards, right? So that's not going to solve your problem. Now, what we've done with our publishing business is we've created a thing called Boombucks, where we went to a number of the third-party aggregators and we put together a system that all aggregates that into a single API, and then the developers integrate that one API into their game. I'm sorry if that sounded sales pitchy, but failing that, you would have to go to a number of the different large sort of aggregators in the region, the MOLs and the Cherry Credits and other companies like that. And I think it would be very onerous to go to a developer and say, here's the 15 different APIs that you have to integrate to make this work. But if you went to only one of those providers, you're cutting out a very large segment of your potential user group. And those different countries, of course, those companies have different strengths in different countries. So one of those companies may be very strong in Thailand, but not so strong in Malaysia, et cetera. So when you're talking about Southeast Asia as a whole, it's very difficult for me to make sense of it and say, oh, well, we went with this one third-party provider and they're going to do all of our billing in Southeast Asia. It's very difficult to find someone who does all of Southeast Asia better than everyone else. I think that's a fair statement, right?
Yeah, very good. I mean, I would agree with you completely, because going by one, the deal structure will be different, and then they give different discount to bigger, publisher and stuff like that. And it will take months or even years, as you know, in Indonesia. Just talking to one telco can, be people are laughing because this is really funny, because talking to them is a bureaucratic nightmare, and they happen to be. I'm speaking for Indonesia. I love my country, but still the government bureaucracy is ridiculous, kind of, and also the telcos are kind of owned by the country also. So usually the person you speak with will change the job title in 3 months. So you have to renegotiate or re-talk whatever you are at, and sometimes the new guy is just fresh from somewhere else that he doesn't know anything about this. So.
Let me add a bit to what Anton has mentioned. We go through that experience of engaging the local governments, Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines, and I do agree that they take a step back and they're always playing catch up to understanding what the technology is about. So, for example, we have a instance of a game developer in Korea who wants to sell their games in Malaysia. And they say, let's price it at $10 USD per month. And we tell them, look, that's not going to work because no one's going to have that enough of credits to actually want to subscribe to your service. And it's 95% a prepaid market in most of the Southeast Asian countries, as compared to what you have in Japan, Korea, and Taiwan, where it's completely the opposite. So a lot of people would have a defined balance, very minimal balance of what they choose to do right after you say subscribe for your data plan. So now here comes in direct carrier billing, whereas like Anton mentioned previously, the telcos are a bit reluctant to look into this because they're comfortable with, say, 50-50 revenue share with any partners that they have. Now in comes Google Play, and a 70-30% revenue share, of which it's still not acceptable for many of the telcos. We're seeing Philippines, Singapore already integrated to, say, Google Play on the DCP. But we're seeing Indonesia now suddenly, early in 2015, do a about then saying, okay, we've got to integrate to the telcos. Of course, where we are based in Malaysia, none of the telcos are still connected to Google DCB. It's currently in talks, but you're seeing a lot of resistance there in terms of what sort of revenue share we'll be getting there, and what sort of games could we publish in this side of the market. So I guess the challenge would be in publishing the games and also looking at how do you package it up with advertising and promotion as well. Is that going to come from the telco or third-party ad networks or partners?
Okay.
Okay, from my standpoint of view, first, we have Asiasoft has our own payment system across Southeast Asia, but I agree with Chris that no one has total domination. Even we have our own payment system in all 6 countries through prepaid cards, PINs, banking system, or even mobile payment. We couldn't have this reach and spread across whole Southeast Asia. So from basically a payment provider, we could have a single API for everyone, but we will not be able to provide the best reach, as what Chris has done. Getting the best, a bunch of everyone putting onto the single API, that will actually work well for a lot of developers.
Okay.
Just to be clear, that thing that we built it because they suggested we do.
Okay.
And I think it's important, like when you're looking at Southeast Asia, to remember where we're talking about, right? I mean, Jan, you know, these are developing countries, and these are places with developing country challenges in working with the government, challenges in working with the infrastructure. And so it's not like Korea or Japan where you can just go in and say like, oh, we're gonna buy some stuff and it's all just gonna magically work out of the box. Nothing ever works magically out of the box in Southeast Asia. Everything takes time and effort.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to hear a bit about Vietnam because it's a specific case, right? It's not a Google Play-based country. It's probably the only country in Southeast Asia that's not relying on Google Play for Android games, right?
Yeah.
Can you tell us how it works in Vietnam?
No, in Vietnam, Apple and Google are very strong.
Oh, they're strong.
But in terms of payment, there's no way to pay.
Oh. I see.
Yeah, that's happened. So what we do is we have to go around that. We build our own payment system, our company,
Mhm.
to go around that, and now I think it's quite good that one of the telcos, one of the payment system work with us, and with the payment rate it's about 15%. So I think everyone is happy, but I don't know what will happen when Apple and Google come in and they have some like policy or no. But now we're working like that in Vietnam.
Okay. Okay, right. Let's switch to the next topic. In the countries you are targeting, what would be the most successful game genres?
Could I add to that? We used to see casual games for people who wants to kill time, action branded or sports. But in 2015, we get a lot of requests from the telco saying, Johari, focus on MMORPG or RPG games. Those are the highest revenue generators or ARPU for the mobile subscribers.
From a publisher point of view, casual games are good because they pull in the crowd. We love them, but in terms of ARPU value, it's low. RPG still command the highest ARPU in the whole of Southeast Asia. Not only just Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, but works across. If you look at the charts, ranking charts of Google Play and iOS, basically you will see more than 50% of the games are actually RPG genre, and most of the games has been staying there for a long time. So RPG is still the way to go for this year, and we foresee that it will be more intense, moving from MMO, simple RPG, card RPG, moving into action RPG for 2015.
Okay.
No, for Vietnam, I think MMORPGs have the highest revenue in ARPU, but the lifetime. MMORPG is normally lifetime is not long, because many companies bring MMORPG in. So for us, we have a occasional game, like DD Tank here, just on the mobile. And it turned out that game has the highest revenue over time. So for me, I think we like both MMORPG for short term and long term, some casual game that can survive. I think both can work well in Vietnam.
Okay.
I'd like to just play devil's advocate to this a little bit. I think everything you guys say is all true. It's all correct and data driven, but it's also now. And I think if you look at the question of what's 2015 going to be, what's 2016 going to be, for me what's interesting is if you go look at App Annie and you look at the things in the top of the charts, Candy Crush is there and Clash of Clans is there and some other casual type games are there. And in fact, I think in 5 of the 7 countries of Southeast Asia, Clash of Clans is not currently #1. I'm not sure, but something like that. When we look at where the growth is, and again, we go back to people who've never had a computer before, they've never had a laptop before, they're getting their very first smartphone, and we're talking about ginormous growth, especially in Indonesia. We have to look at who those people are, right? Are those people who have a deep gaming culture? And the answer is largely no, right? This is the smartphone penetration reaching a whole new demographic. And if we look at what happened in other countries where that thing happened, what we saw was the rise of casual games. And so I think everything that these guys say is certainly true for right now, but if we're projecting forward, I think it's a really big market, so I don't think we can say, oh, this is the one kind of game type you should be doing. I think there's a very good market for a number of different game types, but I also think that we're going to be surprised by the rise of simple, casual games that a 40-year-old, 50-year-old woman in, say, the Philippines who's getting her very first smartphone might enjoy and play and put some money into. I think we're going to be surprised by that growth. That's my bet. But this is purely hypothetical. I don't have data to back that up.
Just adding on, besides casual, actually is the possibility is social SNG games. Because if we look at the rise of basically social network in Southeast Asia through Facebook, where everyone just started to get in touch, a lot of people are playing through games. Zynga was doing very well. everyone was playing all the view stuff. So that was an era before it moved into the mobile games. So that drive a lot of users on the social side.
Okay, yeah, because indeed to market a casual game, it's largely based on social, right? Is there any way to market a casual game other than outside of a, other than inside a social network?
I want to say something about for Indonesian market, and I think
Yeah.
largely in Southeast Asian market as well. Correct me guys if I'm wrong with your countries, but your targeted countries. But in Indonesia, I think the number one marketing channel is and give us the best ROI and the best return is Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Right.
I'm not paid for saying this by Facebook, but it is the best because they can dig down deep into your lookalike audience and all those ninja stuff, you know.
Okay.
It's also, if you go look at the top things in the charts, a number of games that support Line are also quite heavily focused. So that's also something that, again, I think your comment about social networks and people being socially engaged being a big part of what's happening, I think is very true.
Okay. Yes, indeed, we can see in the charts that casual games, casual games that are really in the top of the charts are games that are within the Line ecosystem, right?
It's not a given for all of them, but there does seem to be quite a few.
Yeah.
But again, you run into the problem that depending on which country you're in, which social network dominates is different, right? If you're in Thailand, yeah, that's Line, right?
Yeah.
Indonesia, I believe Line is still quite popular. If you're in the Philippines, nobody's on Line in the Philippines. That's all Facebook, right? So again, it's very difficult to say Southeast Asia is this. You have to look at each country. I don't actually know what social network. Is it Facebook in Vietnam? Yeah.
Okay. And going back to hardcore games, actually, isn't it a problem that basically the top of the charts seems locked? Like Clash of Clans has been there forever. And how do you kick somebody out to take the position, basically?
I think that problem is the same in Southeast Asia as it is in America or France. I think if any of us had the answer to that question, we would be rich right now. I think all of it's a different market and it's a different place, but some of the challenges are exactly the same. And that particular challenge is the exact same as it is in California.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, well, is there anything specific about user behavior in the different countries that you've been targeting? Like something notable about how the users behave when they either select their games or play their games that is different in your country from other countries?
Yeah, well, we're looking at gamers per se, more specifically on mobile. Previously on the traditional content before game, say Android games, mobile network operators tend to package campaigns with a carrot at the end, in terms of say mobile prepaid credits or a handphone. So now when we look at the gamers on the mobile games, you look at leaderboards over the social network, who gets the highest points, and how far you're away from beating your social friends. Now we're also looking at offering a prize element to say on a daily, weekly or monthly basis of what you can perform during the game. And of course, once we send out notifications to players, it does drive them to actually want to actually complete a certain task, a mission, or get some points, or achieve something. So that is one interesting new element which comes into play, packaging the game itself with something that you could obtain. Of course, this is quite new to most of the game developers. You've got to actually sync between what they have before, like traditional leaderboards, to countdown timers and also who will bear this cost of price and what the players could get, what's the threshold, what's the benchmark, and what's the maximum cap that they can actually allocate. So in this year, the mobile network operator is coming in, or third-party partners is coming in with actually absorbing that cost of promotion or price. So that makes it more interesting than traditionally just publishing it to the App Store and then looking at how many people actually download and play that.
Okay. Anybody want to add anything to
Yeah,
that?
I mean, in Indonesia is more to do with the speed and the price point, I think. So, number one is speed. So I see a lot of games, especially from China, they are going to Indonesia. I don't know. I think they are more than 50 megabytes, most of them. Some are even after you download, then you still have the DLC, which is like, oh, download 300 more megabytes. It's free of content, whatever. But I think once a player see that, they will just uninstall, because one is the speed. The guy's gonna die of frustration because of the wait time, and also it seems like it's a free download, but it's actually not, because people are paying for the data packet using their prepaid balance.
Yes.
So although it's free, it's right there, get or like free, but it's not free for them. They need to be able to look at their balance and download from there. And the second is something to do with the price point as well. In average in Indonesia, I think the people's average, like in China, 99% of Indonesian is using prepaid card. And in their average balance left in the phone is usually $1 or less. So if you put the price point, now Google Play has integrated with carrier billing, but if you put the price point over $1, some people just have return error because they can't pay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I would argue that one of the biggest things you have to think about in user behavior in the region is these are people with a lot more time than they have money. And when you imagine Southeast Asia, you have to imagine in the Philippines, 2-hour wait to get a jeepney to go home. And and I'm not exaggerating, that's real, right? And so there's 2 hours worth of people standing in line with their cell phones hooked into a big battery pack because they know that's the only way they can keep it going long enough. But these people, again, they have $1 in their bank account. And so I think one thing that we're looking into, and I wish I had some data to back this up, we will soon, is how we can generate revenue from those people through ads. Because getting that person to give you $2.50 is going to be a very big challenge. Getting that guy to watch 30 minutes of ads a day, that's trivially easy. He doesn't mind at all, right? So I think that's one of the places I would really look at being different in Southeast Asia.
I would like to add something more to back up that idea. In Vietnam, we have a very strange thing happens that we open a game server. Whatever the number of users we are marketing and get in on server. For example, sometimes we open a server with 5,000 NIU, sometimes 20,000, sometimes 30,000. But in after maybe a few weeks, only 10 people pay. No other. How many? It's not depend on how many users we have on server. So it's a very strange behavior that we see in Vietnam. So in order to, I think something is like that around the reasons. People have a lot of time and want to play it for free. So only the people that really hardcore and 10 users per server can pay you. So the way we design the game and the way we operate the game have to balance between money and users, something like that.
So, yeah.
Okay, and for Southeast Asia, our users are actually very used to free to pay. So anything that you ask them to pay up front and play, basically I think only maybe Malaysia and Singapore, we are acceptable to that. But for gamers in Thailand, Philippines, Indonesia, and Vietnam, basically paid to play is not an option. And one more thing to note is due to Southeast Asian, we are always connected online. So for big countries like Philippines, Thailand, Indonesia, Vietnam, basically they can spend about 8 hours of their time online via the desktop or on their mobile phones. So with the amount of time that is spent, ads would actually be an option, as well as Chris has mentioned. But we spend time playing for free. We don't pay. Our actually pay rate is actually much lower than the rest of the world.
Okay, so yeah, from this point, what I gather is that well, first, big games are out of the market because of connectivity issues and data bandwidth. Second, you have to localize the monetization to adapt for what people can pay, are willing to pay, etc. Do you also have to localize the language in different countries?
Yes.
Yes.
Meaning, if you don't, you just don't have a business.
Right.
Okay, so Vietnam, you have to localize.
Have to, you
There's
have to.
no choice in the matter.
Thailand also?
Thailand, you have to localize. There's absolutely no choice. Indonesia, I think, I would argue, some people will tell you that English only is okay. I would argue that's incorrect in the growing market. I don't know. I would take your...
No, I mean, yeah, English only is okay, but yeah, if it's a real RPG where blah 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 TLDR, then you have to localize. But if it's only like play, go, tap, start, then it's okay.
I'll tell you, we did an interesting test because the one that everyone will tell you is the Philippines English is okay. And that's the sort of the common wisdom. And we didn't believe that common wisdom. My studio is about half Filipino. We're deep in the Philippines. And one thing that I think, there's sort of a fallacy where if something is true now, you assume it's true that way for a certain reason, right? And in the Philippines, yes, English language games do fine. Do you know why? There are no Filipino games, right? So there's nothing to compare it back against, right? So we did a test, and we actually put up 2 ads. And one ad was in Taglish, sort of the mixed Filipino English that most people use in the Philippines, and the other one was in English, right? Exact same picture, exact same text, everything was the same, the only difference was the language. We had triple the response on the Taglish ad. Now what's fascinating is both of those ads actually led to an English language version of a game, because we didn't actually have a Taglish version of the game yet. The people who clicked on the Taglish ad and found the English game all left. They weren't interested, right? And what this clearly illustrates is there are people out there that would really like to play a game in their own language, but there's not one out there for them to play. And when they thought there was one, they went, they clicked, they got the thing, and the minute they realized it was in English, they were like, oh, it's another English game, I'm not into that, right? And so the common wisdom is that in Southeast Asia, oh, you don't have to worry about Malay, you don't have to worry about Filipino, maybe you don't have to worry about Indonesian. And my argument actually is that that common wisdom is incorrect. It's saying right now English language games do okay, but they do okay because there's not another option, right? How many games are in Malay right now? Almost none, right? But if you look at what the actual percentage of people in Malaysia who speak English fluently is, and this surprises a lot of people, it's only 27%, right? So if you're putting your game out, then only 27% of Malaysia is actually able to play your game in English with fluency. Now they may be able to pound on the play go button on a really simple casual game, but anything that's got any story element or anything that's really going to draw them in, only 27% of that country. Now admittedly that 27% is the more educated, more affluent 20%, which is going to be more represented in your smartphone owning audience. But even so, again, when we're looking at the smartphone growth rates in Indonesia, when we're looking at the smartphone growth rates in the Philippines, the growth that you're seeing right now is among people who are at that lower economic level, who are now finally able to buy their first mid-priced, low-priced smartphone. And those people are going to be less English fluent than they were before.
Okay, I think we're running out of time. Does anybody have anything to add to that?
Just a quick one for Indonesia. So I think you're absolutely right. There's no alternative or option. But I also think, it's hard to generalize also in the same time. So my kind of point of view is because I grew up playing games, and Indonesian is so crazy that there used to be a game, I mean, you guys know this, is Final Fantasy, and it came out with a Japanese language only. Indonesian would just, buy the pirated and just play without knowing what a single sentence means, and would finish it, So and with that, Indonesian people are very receptive to Western and foreign ideas really quickly, to the point that sometimes I feel that if a game overdo on the translation to become like all Indonesian language, it doesn't seem cool enough.
I would actually agree that, and this is true in the Philippines as well, that there is, if done incorrectly, the idea that it's a local game makes it lower in quality. Oh, that's a local product, and local products are lower quality. So that is actually a real issue. But I think that's going to change. And I think looking forward into the future, as there's more quality products offered in local languages, I think that assessment's going to go away.
Okay.
Addressing to the mostly a lot of the game developers out here or publishers, entering the Southeast Asian market, you have to realize that you need to be ready to adjust your price points to fit each of the different Southeast Asian countries, and also look at actually informing or educating your partner to get more and more feedback of those engaging with your game, so that you know what to change, because every Southeast Asian country will have different culture, and how they adapt would differ.
Okay, we have to stop that. To stop here, from what I get from the gestures over there. So, well, yeah. To wrap this up, Southeast Asia is a market with its difficulties and challenges, which we have exposed here. But it's also a market with high perspectives for growth. So you should really get into there. And of course, there are publishers among those guys who would be very happy to talk to you. Thank you very much.